Hello and welcome to the first edition of What Matters Most. This is a new show, but I'm not new to broadcasting. I was a former broadcaster. I'm a former broadcaster with the Voice of America, and before then I worked for Radio France International and the BBC in London. And this show is to bring people together. I thought that our neighborhood here in Londonderry and New Hampshire in general needs a show where people don't feel challenged or made to feel uncomfortable. So that's why we're here, and it's really exciting for me to open the show with Dr. Richar Lobban, who is to my left. He is a longtime friend of mine, and he's an anthropologist who's written many books and has done research on so many different topics. And he's going to introduce himself properly, but what I can say to you is that he cares a lot about the world. And one of the reasons why I brought him as my first guest is because Dr. Lobban always signs off with a tagline that says, make the world a better place. Dr. Lobban, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very honored and pleased to be here. As Louisa mentioned, I'm a retired anthropologist, but I'm a retiree failure, really. I was 35 years anthropologist at Rhode Island College, and ended up as chair of the department there. But then I quickly shifted to working with the Navy. And so for 16 years, I taught at the Naval War College. But just thinking about this closing slogan, make the world a better place, I have a unique opportunity to do both, because anthropology is holistic and it covers all aspects of humanity, ancient with archaeology, linguistic, it covers social anthropology and physical anthropology. So I think I'm well equipped to do that. And with the Navy, also I teach about security, and I understand that security is also holistic. So it covers health, especially terrorism, things like that.
Very exciting. And I of course, named the show What Matters Most because we see a society today in which people are fighting either because they don't agree politically or because of religion or other matters. What is your advice? You've been around the block, as they say, a few times. You've seen the world. What is your message to bring people together?
Well, with the sort of two hats that I wear, both as anthropologist and working for the Navy, one of the key roles of anthropology is human understanding. And we don't make any judgment. We have one of our bedrock concepts about making the world a better place is to have cultural relativism. In other words, you accept people as they are rather than try to make them into some other image. Anthropology in particular is really good at that because we try to get rid of ethnocentrism, try to get rid of racism, and increase tolerance. Then for my work with the military, it's quite different. It's not liberal arts, that's for sure, but it's very comprehensive. And since I believe that the key to security is addressing health, and that has to do especially with climate change, where many of the conflicts in the world have a bedrock problem of underdevelopment or desertification or climate change, where we find herders fighting farmers and farmers fighting city people and so forth because of differences in perspective.
That's right. And that brings us to one of the themes that I hope I'll be able to convey to our audience throughout my shows, which I hope I'll get a lot of people interested in making the world a better place and making the world united and able to fight the challenges. And I see climate change as a big one. It's enormous. And of course, you talked about security. There's terrorism. There's you know, we have wars going on in the world. We have here in the United States, we have disagreements between people of different political views. Tell me how can we educate our audience and people that still do not realize that this world is going through a very dangerous period?
Right. Well, every time I open my wallet or reach in my pocket, I see the answer to that question, because it says e pluribus unum. And of course in Latin, we're not Latin culture, but anyway, from many we have one. And if people take that seriously as they should every time they look at a dollar bill or look at a coin, they should realize that one person, one vote is essential for democracy. The moment we make somebody excluded or marginalized or whatever, then we're not fulfilling the charter of our country, namely our Constitution. So you have to take that seriously. There's reasons to believe democracy is at stake because of narrow views that women should be excluded or minorities should be excluded or only, you know, certain levels of education should be included. But we can see in the current situation evolving in Afghanistan what exclusivistic rather than inclusivistic government will represent. I certainly don't think that the Taliban is a good model for America. No. They're opposed to every aspect of democracy, and
including education for girls and women in general.
Especially including education, because they want to control, you know, the paradigm. So e pluribus unum is the best answer. If we take that seriously, we respect our currency, we should take the U.S. Constitution seriously and see that many of the Bill of Rights and many of the amendments were done to refine and improve the Constitution, but the bedrock, you know, still remains.
Exactly. Our founding fathers, and I kind of feel tempted to say our founding mothers as well. We forget that women were key to making the United States an independent country, and I so appreciate you bringing up women who are all over the world. Women are denigrated. They are not achieving their full potential. They're not given the chance to achieve equality, and that goes on all over the world, including here in the United States.
For sure.
You know, we see abortion rights being discussed, and women being told that, you know, that they're going to restrict the right to abortion, which is in our Constitution, and how does that play out? I mean, Afghanistan has problems with education and enormous problems. Saudi Arabia, you know, the Middle East is known for not being the best countries in the world for women. But here in the United States, where we have an amazing Constitution, where we have a Bill of Rights, we have the best justice system in the world. How can we exactly? How can we educate the masses, educate our people, our neighbors, about just following our Constitution? It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Well, it's like you can't be a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. And ditto, you can't have a little bit of equality. If you have any diminution of equality, it affects everybody. And by othering people, whether it's women, minorities, Native people, foreigners, whatever, refugees, if you other them, then you're actually not only isolating and frustrating and limiting them, obviously, but you're limiting yourself, because you are preventing the full fulfillment of a nation built on equality and democracy. So those two aspects are indivisible. You can't just have a little bit of democracy, a little bit of equality, a little bit of pregnancy. You either have them or you don't have them. You can refine them and improve them for sure. Make sure that the birth process, you know, goes properly. All of those things need assistance, but if they're in any sense jeopardized or limited, everybody is limited. That's the key here, because of the slogan on our currency, e pluribus unum. Anything that denying your plurality is diminishing your unity.
Absolutely. I made a little introduction about my life, but ever since I was a child, I thought I would be fighting for justice, because I come from a multiracial family where, I really have no sense of hatred in my heart for any one color of skin. We are one human race. There is no such thing as race. There are different colors of skin and pigmentation. And so that's all I saw growing up, right. With a Caucasian father and a black mother and a mixture of Middle East. I have Middle Eastern blood, I have Portuguese blood, I have West African blood from Guinea-Bissau. It's just impossible for a person like me to hate any one color of skin, because I have all of them in me.
Right. Well, along that line, anthropology, turning back to my professional specialty, is well suited to deal with exactly what you're discussing. Namely, we deal with race from a physical, biological point of view, because how you appear is built upon your genetic inheritance, which of course is highly diverse. There's nobody who's pure anything. And if you ever had a pure this and a pure that, then the offspring they have are immediately not following that.
They would have some kind of
protocol.
Genetic diseases and problems
then,
being too similar.
Well, that's also possible. But then for anthropology, of course, we deal with the social aspects, and that's where race has to be contrasted with racism, which is, of course, a perverse ideology that's, when it's in its fullest bloom, has led to some of the worst measures of humanity, whether slavery or genocide or whatever have you. The worst times of human history have been where racism has prevailed. Race, of course, is just let all flowers bloom,
right.
and long live diversity.
And it happened, and I think that's why I love the fact that we have this space, 30 minutes a month, to talk about this. Because what I've learned over the years is that racism was born mainly around the time when slavery started. There had to be some kind of a theory to justify the oppression of the unprotected, of those that were brought to work here in our lands, in America, for example.
Of course, slavery is very ancient. There's no state society in human history, again thinking as an anthropologist, that didn't have coercion and slavery. And in order to do something really bad, harmful, and violent against another person or another people, you have to have an ideology which says you're really doing something good.
Good. Right.
So when the Taliban or ISIS or Al-Qaeda are cutting off heads, they have to think, which is inherently pretty obviously bad, you have to think you're really doing something good because they don't believe correctly. And so therefore,
they think that they're saving their souls, in fact. Suicide bombers think that they are saving their souls when they do that. And that's something that I, being an observer of international, relations and international events, I see happening in so many countries. And the United States has been a leader in the world for so long. We did a lot of bad things, but for the most part, we get it. We get that human rights is important. We get it that there's human dignity and that people should be treated with some kind of empathy and kindness. And how is it that here in the United States, we have so much division today, caused by perhaps politicians, perhaps by some people that have some other interests in mind, and they get the masses to believe lies. And we're at a situation where some people are saying, the elections are rigged, or that vaccines are not necessary, that people can choose whether to wear masks or not wear masks. It's just very confusing what's going on.
First of all, for the audience, both of us are doubly vaccinated. I'm looking forward to my booster shot.
Yes.
But again, anthropology provides some answers to why we are facing these issues of extremism in Islam or extremism in Christianity or political extremism, in our own country. And the answer comes that we do have many crises, many unaddressed concerns, many grievances. Yes. And so people in that context are looking for revivalistic movements or messianic movements or movements which will address the fact that they do have genuine grievances and general concerns. And so they look to someone who is a great leader, who has charisma, who has, they become true believers following the great leader, which is who's mobilized supporters or followers
absolutely
as a revivalistic movement to address the grievances. Of course, when we really address the grievances, and will only abide by truth, because truth, like our political mission here, is indivisible. You can't have like a little bit of truth or some partly truth. Truth is ultimately going to be determined by the test of time.
That's right.
And determined by the test of veracity. And any house that's built on sand or built of cards will finally collapse because it hasn't any merit in reality.
And it's I had some experience here. I did run for office a couple of times, and I met so many people, and my intuition is to say I love everybody. I just really do not care what political party or what religion a person is. If you are not a thief, you're not a murderer, and you believe in treating your neighbor as you'd like to be treated, I think that's plenty for us to have a basis to discuss the most difficult situations. These fights don't lead to anything. I think what leads to something is for us to have these kinds of discussions and find out, hey, Joe, hey, Mary, why is it that you believe what you believe? Let's find the facts. Let's work with facts. It's not a political ideology.
That's such a good point. I think that one of the tests in any dialogue is what do people offer that's true, first of all, that we were just mentioning, but then also what do they offer that's constructive. If it's just hatred and destruction, I don't take that too seriously. But just for the benefit of the audience, I should say that Luisa has her roots in Portuguese West Africa,
That's right.
also known as Guinea-Bissau.
That's right.
And I covered the War of National Independence there.
That's right.
In Guinea-Bissau.
Guinea-Bissau, yes.
So what I have taken from that, well, many lessons, of course, but relative to this conversation, the movement that was trying to end Portuguese colonialism was never against Portuguese.
Right.
It was never against Portuguese soldiers. It was against a system that was oppressive of colonialism.
Absolutely. Amilcar Cabral is one of my favorite leaders of all time. I know that probably not many people have heard of him. But this is, New England actually has a lot of Cape Verdeans. Cabo Verde, or Cape Verde, is an archipelago based in West Africa, north of West Africa actually. And Amilcar Cabral was the leader that decided that Portuguese colonialism had to end in Guinea-Bissau and Cabo Verde. And so he created a liberation war for both countries, and his idea was that the two countries would be united. Richar Lobban is an expert in both countries. I mean, he writes so many books about Cape Verde and about Guinea-Bissau, and please share with us some of the wisdom that Amilcar Cabral had.
The other thing about what Cabral said, one of his famous speeches, was that national liberation is an act of culture. So it's back to the anthropological concept of culture can liberate and free everybody as long as they have the autonomy to express themselves in their cultural milieu, their language, and so forth. But in addition to the wisdom of Amilcar Cabral, who was trained as an agronomist, so he was always interested in climate, but he didn't want to just free the people of Guinea from colonialism, but as you mentioned, free the people of Cape Verde, which is the closest part of West Africa to the New World, to Western Hemisphere. It's where we get all of our hurricanes, by the way, so that may be like...
That's what I heard, but they don't get affected. They kind of launch the hurricanes, and then we get the hurricanes over here.
So this is revenge for the slave trade, maybe. But,
that's interesting. The hurricanes start in Cape Verde, but they land in the Americas. Yes.
Only above the equator. They always go counterclockwise.
Right.
They always go west.
Right.
And they always start from Cape Verde.
That's right.
But in addition,
it's a tiny archipelago. It has, what, 500,000 people by now?
Yeah. More in the diaspora.
And more, exactly. What's interesting, just so our audience understands why we're mentioning Cape Verde or Cabo Verde, I think they want to be called Cabo Verde, but Cape Verde, is that there are more Cape Verdeans living in New England, for example, than there are living in Cape Verde. Isn't that the case?
Well, if you include some who live in Sao Tome, in other parts of Africa, in Senegal, especially in Rotterdam, in Holland, and if anyone in the viewing audience has had cranberry juice from Ocean Spray, good chance it was picked by Cape Verdeans, or clothes that were built in the textile mills were often with Cape Verdeans, and especially the whaling business was heavily influenced by Cape Verdean labor. But besides liberation of Guinea and Cape Verde, it led ultimately to the liberation of Portugal itself, because in the context of those wars in Africa.
The April 25th revolution in Portugal in 1974 freed Portugal from dictatorship. Salazar's dictatorship lasted 50 years in Portugal, and Marcelo Caetano was in power when this happened.
So this was it was a war. So it was a sad way to solve conflicts. Hopefully, like in other countries, it was decolonization by protest and petition. But nonetheless, the positive effect was liberation.
That's right.
And I might even mention that one of the leaders of the war, Pedro Pires, who became the first prime minister and president of Cape Verde.
That's right.
Won the Mohammed Ibrahim Award for good governance because he brought democracy to Cape Verde for the first time in 500 years. He was willing to step down in a fair and free election, and Cape Verde is one of the banner countries in Africa for democracy and justice, and great for tourism too, by the way.
That's right. Beautiful surfing beaches in Cabo Verde and Cape Verde, and there are direct flights. I know you have a residence in New Hampshire as well as Rhode Island, and I know that there are direct flights from Providence to Praia, the capital of Cabo Verde. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, for sure. Yes. And I think during COVID, many transportation links got adjusted or postponed or whatever, but hopefully that will be restored. And even though Cape Verde seems like a small part of a conversation about unity in America, it really is a test tube case of what diversity, because the essence of Cape Verde is absolutely diversity. It's Criollo, mestizo, mulatto, multiracial, whatever culture.
That's
and it shows that rather than be fearful of that, which I think is
we should embrace it.
Yeah.
And I think I say a lot of times we human beings are a bit dumb because we're given beautiful nature, we're given everything we need on this earth, and instead of making it better by being united and working together, we fight each other.
Right.
We will never stop fights. I mean, to be quite honest, I see other animals. My cats fight. Animals fight. We're animals. There will be little fights, but political ideology fights, I don't understand those.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
And thinking about climate change, one of the overarching themes of which causes conflict, over resources, and especially water, number one resource. The U.S. is so hugely endowed with so many resources. It's such a gigantic country. And then you have this little case of Cape Verde, which has so few resources, and yet they
nothing. They don't have water. They barely have any trees, and most of their food is imported. And yet
and look what they've done.
They're making it work.
They make it work. There's a real sense of the e pluribus unum.
And that's, I dare to say, and reiterating what you just said, it has to do with diversity. having everybody participate,
Yeah.
not discriminating against any one group. And I think it is dumb to do that, because I shouldn't use that word, but it is mortifying to see people not working together for better health care, for better schools, for better agriculture, for protecting the environment. We are facing a very big crisis, environmental crisis. There's a racial justice problems and issues in the United States. As I was coming here, I was listening to a discussion, a program talking about the health care problems that people of color face. We have less opportunities to be treated equally, even by doctors and nurses.
Unconscious. So
where does that come from?
It doesn't matter if you're not a member of the Ku Klux Klan or something, but there's microaggressions against people that you don't know. And so, not to charge the whole world with racism, but if you think, you being anyone who's looking at this program, what is the racial, ethnic nature of your neighborhood, of your church, of your place of employment, you'll see that almost always it tends towards monochromatic, except for maybe some sports. But I'm so old, I remember when there were no black players in football, no black players in baseball, no black players in basketball. And so here, if we can get along in that
I think
metaphor.
Sports is a great way for people to come together. And I hope that this program, What Matters Most, will make people think a little bit about what matters most in their lives, because we all want the same things. As I said earlier, it's about health, it's about education, family, and community. We all want the same things. So
you mentioned about the conflicts may still exist over, whatever issues, but so in Cape Verde there's actually a system of racism. But the irony is that it's a different system of racism than the system we have in America. So this leads to a very fascinating anthropological problem, where in Cape Verde, a little bit of white whitens and gives you upward social mobility, even though basically almost the whole country is mulatto or mixed and so forth, Creole. Whereas in America, we have a system of racism where a little bit of black blackens and gives you downward social mobility. So when Cape Verdeans, let's say tan Cape Verdeans, come to America, they think they're actually white. And then they can show a Portuguese passport maybe and say, I'm Portuguese, but that's a nationality and not really a race. And then they come to America and say, excuse me, you're not white, you're black. So how can somebody be white and black, the same person at the same time? But it shows the ridiculousness.
It is the whole thing is just totally ridiculous, and it will take time to teach our students and parents. I think the parents have to be the ones that tell their kids it's not okay to discriminate or to treat others in an unjust way. It is up to the parents and the schools. And I was reading up an article recently where they were talking about educators saying, it's not enough to teach students to not bully each other. We have to create a culture where kids don't feel like they have to be bullies or to be racist or to be to denigrate any other student.
Just to underscore that, racism diminishes everybody. Obviously, it diminishes the people who are victims, but it diminishes the victimizers. I worked, as Louisa knows, I worked for many decades in Sudan. And there is an Arab nationalism and sometimes Islamism with Osama bin Laden in Sudan. But the hatred of Southern Sudanese, racially, ethnically, linguistically different, also long history of slavery, finally resulted in the country getting cut in half. So here's their great mission of being this wonderful Balad Sudan, land of the blacks, but they were so xenophobic that they actually literally cut off the part of their
So
country.
the darker side is in
Yeah.
the south. It became
Yeah.
South Sudan. Is it just one country now, South Sudan?
But they're in
and
civil war
North?
too because
Civil war.
of ethnic
Right.
cleavages
Right.
and power and
So
greed.
because as soon as you empower the idea that ethnicity matters, then it just, I guess it continues. They are not the victims. They were the victims of the North, and now they're victimizing each other through ethnicity.
Well, sometimes people say for America or for any multi-ethnic continent or territory, it's a melting pot. I think I'd like to refine that just a bit by saying it's a tossed salad.
That's right.
Because a melting pot suggests that everyone is living in somehow harmony and it's one melange.
And they give up their cultures.
And
I mean,
they
we
give
will
up
never give
something.
up, for example, Italians. Italian Americans are proud of their heritage. Chinese Americans are proud of their heritage. Indian Americans are proud of their heritage.
So the tossed salad metaphor,
it's a tossed salad.
you can still,
Yes.
there's a nice salad and you enjoy all the parts of it,
Right.
but you can still see there's a tomato, there's a cucumber, there's a this and there's a that. So the melting pot sounds really great, good marketing concept, but I don't think it's ever happened. And
it shouldn't happen.
it shouldn't,
I
because
think
you need to protect your own culture and language. Yeah.
I think having lived through so many different cultures and countries, I understand that the essence, the best of us humans is when we respect ourselves and respect others, regardless of the way they look or what they believe, and treat people with dignity. And I think that's why
sure.
I so like when you say make the world a better place, because we can make the world a better place. For example, I'm trying to do that by having this program, What Matters Most. I'm trying to bring people together.
Well,
and everybody else is doing. You're going to the Sudan, you're digging for old
ancient history.
And before we go, can you tell us a little bit about your latest
of course,
discoveries?
Part of racism, which we were discussing before, is that you would come up with ideas that Africans have no history. Somehow that justifies that you should be brutal to them, which of course doesn't make any sense, first of all. But when you consider that everyone on the planet ultimately is African, and the diversity of the planet is African.
Human beings originated in Africa. All human beings
from
originated
the anthropologists
in
and archaeologists tell us
Right.
that. And my first degree is in biology, actually. So it's through diversity and the plurality of species that we can be best adapted and best prepared for whatever changes may take place. So the fact that we have species elimination, we find environments being despoiled, this is diminishing absolutely everybody. It's not just like tree hugging or something like that. We're collectively diminished by repressing diversity. I mean, it's like some of the early, the Bureau of Indian Affairs was suppressing Native American language and culture, cutting off braids.
And they were supposed to be there to help Native Americans progress and get educated, and
so it's diminished all of us.
It's an aberration. It's just so that brings us to one theme that I really like, which is the same theme, but I think that racism has to end within the government itself. The government itself is guilty of not clearing up and making everybody feel welcome and treating everybody the same.
Well, now we have this very gigantic issue of voting rights.
That's
which
right.
was struggled for with so much bloodshed and violence, and it shouldn't even need.
And we have people fighting through gerrymandering and through limiting the Bill of Rights and voting rights and diminishing the ability of people to vote. And some people have waited all their lives to have the right to vote, and some died for the right to vote.
I was lucky enough to be at Lincoln Memorial in 1963.
Oh, wow.
To see Martin Luther King give the I Have a Dream speech.
Oh, my goodness, that's amazing,
and
magnificent.
It was such a gigantic crowd, and it was absolutely plural.
Oh,
African American, Asian American, white American. And even I hear that speech for like Black History Month or something like that, and it sends goosebumps, because I remember the day when I was looking up at him, you know, as a person. On the left-hand side of the steps, sometimes I could see pictures. I'm looking for, it might be me in that picture. So
amazing.
This is
that is amazing. I wish I were there.
well, you're
I was only 4.
yeah, I'm too old. So
No, you're not.
so anyway, it's struggles for plurality, struggles for diversity,
Right,
which gave life meaning for me, to try to make the world a better place. I also do a lot of political asylum work, and they're almost all African.
Right.
And
I wanted you to talk a little bit about this idea that we should not accept people coming, seeking asylum and refugees in the United States. I find that because I have a human rights law degree myself, and I believe that people have the right to seek asylum. If they're being persecuted or if their lives are in danger, they are entitled to come to the United States or to Germany or Italy or France or anywhere else that they find a place of refuge. So why is there so much controversy?
There are specific international law. Economic refugees they can appeal, but that's not in the asylum or Convention Against Torture law.
Right.
They have to be actually victims of persecution by race, ethnicity, religion, or politics. And those are the standard bases.
Right.
And I get hired by various lawyers as an expert witness,
Right.
As expert on African culture
Right.
to confirm that
so
they're...
if they can prove that they were persecuted or
Right.
that their lives are in danger in some way, they have the right to be given asylum.
They have a right
Not
to apply
necessarily
for it.
To
But it
apply
has
for
to be
Okay, it has to be
by
decided. Yes.
law court, whether they have they're honest and they've met the threshold.
Right.
The big difficulty is that, especially on our southern border, refugees are often here for economic reasons, or
Right.
for domestic abuse, or for gangs, and that's harder to prove.
And we have a lot of illegal immigrants also that get
that's
through the
another
border.
problem. Yeah.
And that's a problem of our, I would say it is our immigration policies. We don't have the laws
Right.
and the ability to implement the laws that we have to filter through those that are genuine asylum seekers and
Right.
differentiate between those and those that are economic immigrants
And
that
then
are coming here for a better life, to improve their lives, but they're not applying, they're not going through the United States Embassy, for example, to apply for their visas. They're coming here illegally. That should not happen. That
No,
should
it's
not happen.
definitely-
They should not happen, and there should be a process through which those people can apply. And having said that, I just heard that we have a big shortage of truck drivers in the United States. Do you think this is connected with the fact that we're not letting enough immigrants come through, and we have a shortage of labor, and pretty soon we may not have any food in our in the supermarkets?
So many help wanted signs on restaurants, hotels, all the public service sector, Dunkin' Donuts, help wanted, everywhere help wanted. So, I mean, we're throttling those businesses, which will be important for the rebuilding of the economy in the post-COVID, let's hope, post-COVID era.
Right.
So there would be a great chance, even if we gave temporary visas, forget even asylum, forget
Right.
citizenship, forget
Right.
green card,
Right.
but just as we have had, particularly for Mexican labor in California, for agricultural labor, or Haitian and Jamaican labor in Connecticut and New England, they would come and go, but at least they would have the wherewithal. We would meet our own economic redevelopment needs. So there's so many practical problems which could be solved, but the polarization in America, even though every party recognizes immigration is a problem, there is no convergence of a belief or practice or legislation to resolve it.
This is just something that I've been thinking about. For example, in Italy, they turn away so many migrants, and some of them die at sea trying to reach their shores. And at the same time, we keep reading up that Italy and Spain, they don't have enough people
to work.
They don't have, they're shutting down schools, churches, villages. Entire villages are for sale, and homes are for sale for $1 if you can renovate them in Italy. And there is a mayor in Italy, I forgot his name now, that came up with the idea that, wait a minute, we don't have shortage of people, we're turning them down. We're not letting immigrants come in. The entire universe has been made up of people moving from land to land. It's never stopped, and it will never stop regardless. So why is it that those countries don't see clearly what's happening? They're not short of people. Their immigration policies are not in line with the needs, the labor needs, the shortages that they experience. They're not thinking straight.
Well, since you lived in Britain for so many years.
For quite a long time.
We have now Brexit, which was motivated in part by xenophobia, and racism, to be blunt about it.
Absolutely.
But now they have to bring in foreign workers, even though they're trying to exclude them in the first place. Now they must bring them because
they don't have
the supply chain is messed up by lack of drivers.
Showing once again, I think the theme of this discussion has been anti-racism and people being xenophobic, and it seems to me that our main issues today, the labor shortage and so forth, it has to do with people not thinking about the needs that they have in terms of labor. Let people that are qualified come in and work and get the jobs that are vacant.
For sure. I mean, this is where it is actually stupid and counterproductive when your xenophobia, for the Sudanese case, cuts your country in half. For the British case, you can't drive your trucks because you need labor, but you have excluded labor. Or in America, where we have our immigration problem, we need workers, and many of these people would be willing to work even cheaply. I mean, there's a whole other issue about exploitation, but it would solve so many problems, economic problems.
Economic problems, and I think our economy, will suffer if we don't take the right measures, if we don't come up with a solution. Now, Richard, tell me just, in 1 or 2 minutes, what matters most after all you've done, all you've seen, all these years. Of course, I will go first. I will say what matters most is family, community, and fresh air, food, education, all of that. And so how do we get this message across?
Well, of course, health is primordial. If you don't have good health, you can't get to all the other steps. But part of good health is not just your health relative to disease and eating nutritional food and so forth, but it's mental health. And I consider that racism is a social pathology which does diminish absolutely everybody.
Everything.
I mean, when you have even the most outrageous case of slavery, then you have to sleep with a gun in your bed for fear your slaves are going to revolt. So you have always a sense of anxiety. So if we can address this need by having much more interaction with people who are diverse. We have more education, more acceptance of diversity. Diversity is healthy.
It's key. Diversity is key to progress of mankind. Period. And I'm going to sort of let you know that I subscribe to a site that's called Diversity Best Practices, and it's an organization that tracks down companies that hire a more diverse workforce. And you won't believe this. Time and again, those companies that hire a more diverse force, including more women, including more people of color, including the LGBTQ plus community, they are more profitable by 17%. That's significant. That's almost a quarter of all of the profits that a company looks for. But why is it that this message, why is it that this country and us and all of us don't use data to just give us an indication of where we're going? If you're more diverse, you're more profitable. So why aren't you more diverse?
Power.
So it's about
But
power.
the falsity of that idea that I want to stay in my domineering, powerful position diminishes you. It doesn't empower you. That's the falsity. So education, mutual respect, and our key watchword for this program today is diversity, not just because it's good or it's nice or it's legal, because it makes everybody better.
And it makes the world move forward. It makes us
For sure.
solve problems together. And as I said, you know, in the workforce, it's proven that it makes a company more profitable. So if you're looking for money and profit, it's giving you more money.
Right.
But even for communities, a lot of people go to church and others, you know, go to the mosque, or, you know, there are different religions. There's the Muslim faith, there's the, you know, there's Christianity, there's the Baha'i faith, there's the Jewish faith, there's, you know, we have all these beautiful faiths, including Buddhism and others, that are advocating for treating your neighbor the way you'd like to be treated.
With respect.
With respect. Isn't that enough?
The golden rule should be tattooed in everyone's mind. Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. Or in West African pidgin from Nigeria, like a broken English, whatever. Do me, do you, God not go vex. Do unto me, and they will do unto you, and God will not vex you, will not cause you a problem.
And it's been there forever. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for coming all the way, for sharing your thoughts and you know, your knowledge and your experience and your wise years. You're not old, you're just wiser. And I really thank you for coming.
It's a great pleasure to be here and interact with your audience and your friends. And
thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity so much.
Absolutely, and come again anytime.